Part 1.
Michael has some trouble at university. Professor Plant is having a talk with him in his office.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Come in, come in.
Good morning, Professor Plant. I understand you wanted to see me.
Yes, Michael, I did. It's about your coursework.
My coursework?
I'm afraid your tutor, Mr. Atkins, has reported to me that your standard of your work has been getting worse.
I know, Professor,
He tells me that the essays you have done this term have been weak, and that your attendance at his tutorials and seminars has been poor.
He has spoken to me about it, Professor.
At this stage, Michael, your coursework is very important. I understand from Mr. Atkins that you are capable of an upper second, and it would be a pity to ruin your chances of a good degree, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Michael, I think you should do two things. The first is to cut down on your union activities. I understand you do a lot in the student union. And the second is to see one of our welfare tutors, to discuss any problems you may have. I'd like you to make an appointment to do that as soon as possible.
All right, Professor.
I'll expect to hear that your coursework has improved. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Professor, and thank you.
Michael is in the welfare office.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
I hope I'm not late, Miss Baxter. I have an appointment for 11 o'clock. Professor Plant asked me to come.
Take a seat, please.
My name's Michael Andrews. I'm in my last year.
Oh, yes. You're chairman of the Social Science Society, aren't you?
That's right. That's one of my problems. It's been taking up too much time.
Surely there must be another student who could take over the job.
Yes, there is someone, I suppose.
There isn't anything else worrying you, is there, Mr. Andrews? Anything personal, I mean? At home? Financial? You needn't feel embarrassed. There may be something I can do to help.
I'm in debt.
Surely you have a reasonable grant.
Yes, I have, but this term's hasn't come yet, and I borrowed some money when I bought a car.
I see.
Now this person, well, actually he's a friend. Now he wants his money back.
That seems natural enough. How much do you owe him?
£100.
Well, I'm afraid it's against our policy to lend money to students. The only solution seems to be to sell the car. Otherwise, you'll be short of money all term.
Yes, I suppose so.
In any case, I'll ask your county to send your grant as soon as possible.
Thank you very much.
Michael is talking to his friend Tessa in the students' coffee bar.
Cheer up, Mike. You look really down in the dumps. What's the matter?
I've seen the professor this morning and the welfare tutor. They've advised me to resign as chairman of the Social Science Society.
Resign? But you've done it so well.
Yes, I know, but I can't get through my work, and I've got finals coming up. I intended to work really hard last vacation, but you know what happened.
I suppose it is best to resign, Mike. Peter can take over.
That's not all. There's a bigger blow.
Money, I suppose.
Well, I owe Jim £100.
What for? The car, was it? You are a fool, Mike. I can't see how an economist can be so silly about money.
I'll just have to sell the car.
Well, cheer up. You can always use my bike.
That is the end of Part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
Part 2.
You are going to hear a talk on ginseng. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen to the tape and answer the questions.
Good morning. Today we'd like to talk with Mr. Schumacher of Kaiser Farms. Mr. Schumacher, what is in ginseng that makes it so special?
Thanks. The key elements in ginseng are the active ingredients known as ginsenosides. All true ginseng products on the market contain a certain percentage of ginsenosides, and a number of factors determine how much. The age of Wisconsin ginseng when harvested plays a major role in determining the natural level of ginsenosides. Tests have shown that the older the plant, the higher the ginsenoside content. 5-year-old Wisconsin ginseng plants have had ginsenoside levels as high as 20%. As a family operation, one of our strategies in producing the highest quality product available is to only harvest 4- and 5-year-old roots. The majority of Wisconsin ginseng harvested is 3 years old. The reason for this is that the expenses to care for and the possibility of disease increase as the plants become older. By limiting the amount of ginseng that we plant each year, we are able to provide the necessary attention and care to produce the highest quality 4- and 5-year-old roots.
Now look at questions 15 to 20. As the talk continues, answer questions 15 to 20.
What is Wisconsin ginseng used for?
There are 2 real species of ginseng on the market today: Panax, Korean or Chinese, and Panax quinquefolius, Wisconsin. Since ginseng has been used for thousands of years in China, it is easiest to explain the differences in ginseng by using traditional Chinese herbal philosophy. Wisconsin ginseng is considered a cooling type herb, and Korean or Chinese ginseng are considered heating type herbs. As a cooling herb, Wisconsin ginseng is used as a preventative medicine. Here in the United States, Wisconsin ginseng is considered an adaptogen. As an adaptogen, Wisconsin ginseng acts to normalize body functions and strengthen the immune system and other systems in the body. Over a longer period of time, it builds up energy and maintains the body at a higher level, acting to reduce stress and fatigue. As a heating herb, Panax ginseng is used more as a stimulant and is often prescribed in China when the body is recovering from an illness and is worn down and in need of a rapid boost of energy. It is only recommended to be taken over short periods of time and not continuously. Wisconsin ginseng is considered the premier ginseng in China because it can be taken on a continuous basis and acts as a preventative type medicine by slowly building up the body. Wisconsin ginseng fits in perfectly with the Chinese herbal philosophy of preventative type medicine. Unlike here in the US, where we often wait until we are ill to seek medical attention, the traditional Chinese medicinal philosophy concentrates on building up the body to prevent illness. Based on the way Wisconsin ginseng has been prescribed in China, it is the correct ginseng to be taken for the majority of the consumers. Travel to China and see firsthand the ginseng that is considered the world's finest ginseng.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to Part 3.
Part 3.
Mark has talked about a small animal. I'm going to give you a talk about a very big one.
First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Mark has talked about a small animal. I'm going to give you a talk about a very big one. It's the giraffe, a tall, long-necked, spotted ruminant. Male giraffes are usually about 6 meters tall. Half of the giraffe's height comes from its neck, which is longer than its legs. A baby giraffe is 2 meters tall at birth. It can stand up by itself within a few minutes and can run well in about 2 days. A giraffe has big brown eyes which are protected by very thick lashes. Since it lives in parts of Africa which are usually dry with a great deal of dust, the lashes are an important source of protection. It can also cover its nostrils in order to protect its nose. It has 2 short horns on its head. Like the camel, the giraffe can go a long time without drinking water. One source of water is the leaves which the giraffe eats from trees. Since it is so tall, the giraffe can reach the tender leaves at the top of a tree. Giraffes usually live in small herds and often feed with other animals. Giraffes have 2 methods of self-protection. If something frightens an adult giraffe, it can gallop away at about 50 kilometers per hour, or stay to fight with its strong legs. Well, that's all I know about giraffes.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Peter and Kate have met in the coffee bar and they were having coffee together. Hi there, how are you going with your tutorial next week?
Oh, good. I've decided to talk about paper and its use.
Fascinating, I'm sure.
Yes, I think it's an interesting topic. Do you know how much paper you use every year?
Well, I've never thought about that. I can't answer your question. I suppose you can tell me something about it.
OK. It'll be good practice for my tutorial next week.
How much paper does one person use every year?
In 1900, the world's use of paper was about 1 kilogram for each person in a year. Now, some countries use as much as 50 kilograms of paper for each person in a year.
This shows how far advanced the country is.
You're right. Countries like the United States, Britain, Japan, Germany and Sweden certainly use more paper than other countries.
I'm very interested in the history of paper. You're going to talk about it next week?
Yes, of course.
Where was paper first made?
In China. The Chinese first made paper about 2,000 years ago. China still has pieces of paper which were made as long ago as that. But Chinese paper was not made from the wood of trees. It was made from the hair-like parts of certain plants. In Egypt and the West, paper was not very commonly used before the year 1400. The Egyptians wrote on papyrus, a kind of paper made from the pith of the stems of tall aquatic cyperaceous plants. Europeans used parchment for many hundreds of years.
What was parchment?
Parchment was made from the skin of certain young animals. They were very strong. We have learnt some of the most important facts of European history from records that were kept on parchment.
Oh, I see. How about paper in Europe?
Well, paper was not made in southern Europe until about the year 1100. Scandinavia, which now makes a great deal of the world's paper, but didn't begin to make it until 1500. It was a German named Schraffler who found out that the best paper could be made from trees. After that, Canada, Sweden, Norway, Finland and the United States became the most important in paper making. They are forest countries. Today, Finland makes the best paper in the world, and the paper industry of the country is the biggest in the world. New paper making machines are very big, and they make paper very fast. The biggest machines can make a piece of paper 300 metres long and 6 metres wide in 1 minute.
Oh my goodness, that's amusing.
What are the uses of paper?
Paper is used for newspapers, books, writing paper, envelopes, wrapping paper, paper bags.
Yes, only half of the paper that is made is used for books and newspapers. Have you got an idea about other uses of paper?
No, I'm afraid not.
There are many other uses. Paper is very good for keeping you warm. Houses are often insulated with paper. You have perhaps seen homeless people asleep on a large number of newspapers.
Yes, I have. So they're insulating themselves against the cold.
You are right. In Finland, it is very cold in winter. It is sometimes 40 degrees below 0 centigrade. The farmers wear paper boots in the snow. Nothing could be warmer.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Now more and more things are made of paper. We have had paper plates, cups and dishes for a long time. But now we hear that chairs, tables and even beds can be made of paper. With paper boots and shoes, you can wear paper hats, paper dresses and paper raincoats. When you have used them once, you throw them away and buy new ones. You know, the latest in paper seems to be paper houses. These are not small houses for children to play in, but real, big houses for people to live in. You can put one up yourself in a few hours, and you can use it for about 5 years.
Fascinating.
People have made paper boats, but they have not yet made paper planes or cars. Just wait, they probably will.
Well, I'm sure your tutorial will go really well.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4.
You are going to hear a talk given by Jim Allen. He is going to share some of his findings of his research. Now you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning. Today we'll be hearing from Jim Allen, who will be sharing some of the findings of his research project from last term. Jim.
Thanks. Well, to start with, a little bit of background about the project. As you can see, our title is something that is relevant to everybody in this part of the world: water safety. These days, there's a lot more to water safety because of the increasing number and range of boats and other things people use on public waterways. I'd become interested through reports on radio about the number of incidents involving small powerboats and individual watercraft such as jet skis. It seemed to me that because these craft were essentially recreational and didn't require licenses to use, there was very little opportunity to influence the users towards being safety conscious. So, I decided to make this the focus of the project. For the research, we mainly relied upon talking to people, asking them questions in preference to using a written questionnaire. We interviewed a wide range of people at a number of popular swimming locations over 2 consecutive weekends and asked them what they'd observed or experienced themselves. The respondents were both male and female, but the men were just slightly in the majority. We were pleased with their willingness to talk about the subject, and all told, interviewed 145 people over the 2 weekends. So, what were the findings? As you can see, 86% of people reported having had some type of problem. A surprisingly large percentage, 27%, commented that they had found it necessary to shout at an offending powerboat, but the main type of problem was the deafening sound that some of the boats made. On occasions, this led to swimmers deciding to move to another location. So what strategies did people adopt to ensure their own comfort and safety? Let's have a look at the figures. First, it was noticeable that there were often distinctly different answers between men and women. It was mainly the women, for example, who said they should try to choose places where boats couldn't go, whereas it was usually the men who said you shouldn't have to move if you were there first, so you should shout at them if necessary. Both men and, it was women who said you should call the authorities if the situation gets too dangerous or the powerboat drivers are acting irresponsibly. Then, I had thought it would be mainly women, but both sexes made the point that above all, it's important to get children away from any possible danger. Men were very aware that jet skis could be unpredictable in inexperienced hands. They also made the point that it's much safer to have your car nearby and clearly visible to any watercraft if you're swimming in a relatively remote spot. Finally, wearing visible clothing, men didn't think it was quite as important as women, but both gave it a high safety rating. When we asked them what they thought the government should do to help solve the problem,
that is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to your Ielts listening answer sheet.